Okay, guys, welcome to this week's show. I am so excited to have Ian Braun here with Sandals and Beaches Resorts. I'm thinking everyone has probably heard of the brand. Very, very popular all-inclusive resorts throughout the Caribbean. Ian, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Melissa. Pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at our agency, we are a big fan of this brand. It is just good business to promote a supplier that you know is going to make your clients very happy. And so I know that anytime I send a client to one of your properties, that is going to be the case. And so you make my job easier. So thank you for that, for all the work that you guys do. Your service is exceptional. And actually, my husband and I went for our 20th wedding anniversary this past year to Sandals Montego Bay, of course, before the hurricane. And we just had the most phenomenal experience. And one thing I always thought that I didn't need, like, I didn't need to be spoiled. I guess it would be what I would say. Like, I love all inclusive and I've always loved all inclusive, but I would have never personally said, oh, yes, I must have a butler, because I'm just not, I would view that as being fussy, and I'm not that type of person. But I don't think I could ever go with it without a butler now. It was just, they were so wonderful, and they just make that experience so much more elevated than I ever could have anticipated. So we absolutely felt spoiled. And I wrote a blog post about it and everything. Guys, at the end, I will share a QR code. So if you want to read more about our experience there, I will share that. But um, I guess I want to start with saying you guys are known for luxury. That I think is pretty evident. All-inclusive, elevated experience. What do you think? There's so many all-inclusive resorts now. There's so many across the Caribbean, Mexico. What do you think sets your brand apart specifically from the others out there?
Yeah, well, first of all, once again, thanks for having me on today and congratulations on your recent 20th wedding anniversary. Glad to hear you guys loved Sandals Montego Bay. It's always a fan favorite,
Thank
one of
you.
my favorites as well. Yeah, so first of all, there's so many different brands out there, right? They're all great. They all offer something special for that client or that clientele, which is great. But like I said, what sets us apart? And I actually was going to go over a bunch of things, but since you mentioned Butler first, I thought that might be a good opportunity, to talk about something that not I hear that all the time. I don't need a butler. I don't need somebody unpacking my clothes for me. But Butler is so much more. That level of service is so much more than I would say. It's more than just bringing pizza and beer to the swimming pool. It's an opportunity to create literally a one of a kind experience that your friends have never had. That no one that experience can never be duplicated. Do you know what I mean? When you have that butler, and I always encourage people who are going, sit down with your significant other and just brainstorm some fun things that you've always thought would be cool. Like I always give the example of, maybe it is your milestone 20th wedding anniversary. Let the butler know you're not going to be back to the room until around 10 p.m. You want, the lights dimmed. You want rose petals leading to, the ensuite. You want the spa filled up already with champagne and a bucket of ice right next to that. That is a butler experience. So things like that, I think right off the bat really set us apart. But another thing that I feel like we really offer that maybe not every competitor does is our level of variety. It's more and more what clients want. They don't want to be, boxed into a certain package. They want to have options. But, with 19 resorts on 9 different islands, and you probably know better than anyone, hundreds and hundreds of room categories, right? There is going to be an island, a resort, and a room category that fits not just your budget, but your lifestyle, what you're looking for. So I mean, just right on the surface, there's so many things to talk about that set us apart, but those are really just a couple of the major highlights, I believe.
Okay, yeah, I completely agree. So thank you. So I know everybody when they think of just any all-inclusive resort, they're going to think of a pool, a beach, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys are certainly in that category. You have beautiful beaches, beautiful pools, swim up bars, things like that that people are seeking out. But what are some of the lesser known activities that you guys offer that people would not be aware of?
I'm going to give you a really fun one, and I'm glad you had this question because people may or may not know this, and you might not either, but pickleball has become, kind of the buzzword in the Caribbean
Mhm.
recently. It's literally our fastest growing segment of groups. So we have kind
Yeah.
of gone all in on pickleball. We actually just partnered with the US Pickleball Association. But I mean, even if you just, look at different assets online, Sandals South Coast in Jamaica, for example, we have 12 dedicated pickleball courts. And yeah, that's fun to go play, but it gives you an opportunity if there's, a tournament that you want to host, or you play with a huge group of people. Or I actually, I was working with somebody who is working on their pickleball club is going to challenge another pickleball club and have that tournament take place in the Caribbean. So that's just one of the things that has really taken off, when it comes to some of those things that people might not necessarily know. But whether it's pickleball or another group activity, I think people don't always realize that there's so many opportunities for you to do what you like to do with that group of like-minded individuals in the Caribbean. Like I said, whether it's
Yeah.
golf, pickleball, whether it's a book club or mahjong club. We keep getting mahjong club, mahjong group requests.
Yeah.
So maybe that's catching on there too. But it's really an opportunity to do things that you love to do, back at home and do that in the Caribbean. Not everybody realizes we've really perfected that blueprint for groups at Sandals and Beaches.
Yeah. And yes, I have had I was aware of the pickleball, and it is very popular, and it's a great trip for groups, really
Yeah.
truly, because they can play together, but they can also not, And I think that's one of the other things that, so I have a couple of families um, when I make a recommendation for you guys, it's because you have that balance of, so if I have two in the family that love an active, trip, and I have two that just want to veg on the beach,
Yep.
a family can do that well at one of your properties. They can use the water, a jet ski or something like that on the property if they want to go out and do that on the beach while somebody else sits on the beach, or they could do an excursion if they choose. That those are things that they can actually select. So I think just the number of activities, I think a lot of people aren't aware of, and you guys have the ability to rent equipment right there on the beach if they want to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that just kind of goes back to the level of variety and value and different options. I mean, you take a place like Beaches, Turks and Caicos, for example, where you have, 28 different dining options, but also you could do, a dozen different snorkeling. You can snorkel right off the beach there if you want, but, different dive opportunities and things like that. So all these things you can do, you've got a family with different wants and needs. You do those things throughout the day. You cross path the different, restaurants throughout the day. You get together for dinner in the evening, and that is truly, an all-inclusive family experience. It really is. It's experiences. That's what people want more and more nowadays. It's having that experience of the Caribbean and doing that pickleball tournament or experience with the family. It's more than just picking a destination and going, spending time on a resort. It's about creating an experience that you might not ever be able to duplicate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that sustainability, community impact are becoming very important to the modern traveler. And I know that you also recently, unfortunately, had the experience with Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. And I know that just from what I saw, you guys really stepped up to help that community. But I guess in light of that, and then if there's anything else that you could speak to that you feel like you guys do really well in that area, I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, just kind of acknowledging that whole situation first. Yeah, Hurricane Melissa, what was one of the highest category hurricane to make landfall in Jamaica and ever, really. So huge impact for us. We're still dealing with a lot of the impact on that, but I mean, I think it was really, I guess for lack of a better word, it was cool to know that our resorts, they actually could have opened up earlier, but instead of just cleaning up and opening up as soon as possible, they took an opportunity to house a lot of the workers there that couldn't necessarily make it home, or roads were damaged, things were closed. So, business just kind of took a back seat for a second when we said, there's bigger priorities. It's making sure our people are taken care of. They're still being paid throughout this entire time. And, when we decide the time is right to open up the resorts, that's what we'll do. But I think that was just really, impactful to hear. I'm glad to be associated with a company that has those priorities. But yeah, I think it goes a lot farther than that too. I'm sure you're familiar with the Sandals Foundation. That is a really, really important part of our business and who we are. That's been around for this actually the 15th year of the Sandals Foundation. They've literally impacted over 1.5 million people in the Caribbean. That is huge. I mean, they do everything from building of schools, sustainability projects, to facilitating the hatching of the sea turtles in beaches, Turks and Caicos. So anything you can imagine on that spectrum for sustainability. And then we even give our clients an opportunity to participate in some of those things. I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to do the reading road trip. I've done that in a few of the different locations, but for those who aren't familiar, you literally, it's just like any other excursion. They pick you up from the resort, you go to a local school in that area, and you literally you hang out. You spend time with the kids, you read books. We were throwing the football and playing soccer. They're not huge football fans, but soccer fans, doing those kind of things and just enjoying and just, hearing from them and having interactions with them. Or we'll go there and do projects, painting and things like that. So, these are all opportunities that, the clients can experience. So it's just great to, feel like you've played a part in that community. And people, I think, are more conscious than ever before about the destinations they're picking, about the resorts they're choosing, to spend their money with. So I do think it means a lot that we're prioritizing, a lot of these different things.
Yeah, and just going back to the hurricane, from a travel advisor's perspective, I can say that hearing from guests that were at the properties during the hurricane and how well you guys handled that, and they never felt unsafe, and like you guys prioritized them really well too, but they also did note that you prioritized your team members and your staff. And I think that goes a long way. People get nervous about traveling, and just knowing that, oh, if I pick a place like this, they're going to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about destination weddings, because you're obviously going to be a high choice, right? And I know that for me personally, I work with a lot of clients that do want a destination wedding, or they want to talk to me about a honeymoon. From a destination wedding standpoint, what do you think just sets you apart with your packages and your experiences that makes your locations, your resorts, one of the reasons people are wanting to pick you for destination weddings?
Yeah, so if you've ever seen a Sandals commercial, you probably know that we do destination weddings and are, the destination for honeymoons, destination weddings, all that. So I think number one is just experience. Like you mentioned before, you're partnering with a brand that is synonymous with, romance. We even have a director of romance. That is literally her job title. So, I mean, that's just a pretty epic job title in itself, but that just tells you, what her priority is and what her department's priority is. So I think we definitely have, kind of that credit to our side. But I think also just going back to the value of doing a destination wedding in the Caribbean, if you've planned a wedding or, you're in the process of planning a wedding, like all the different costs that come into it, just the different, the level of headache that can be associated with that. When you're able to, when you're working with a client, they can work directly with you and you can say, listen, I'm going to connect you to the specialist on the resort, the wedding planner, the wedding coordinator, and they are going to walk you through every step of the way. And the good news is this is literally all they do every day. They've done this dozens and dozens, maybe 100 times. So they are going to be, so proficient in walking you through this process. And also, I don't like to use the word packages either, because I don't think any, bride to be wants to feel like they have to pick package A, B, or C. They want to be able to customize this to make it, as unique to them as possible, and ideally create a wedding experience that's never going to be duplicated again, whether it comes to picking, the flowers, the colors, the different setup you're going to have on the beach, all those are options that you get to pick and choose from. And just with the resorts being the way they are and just really catering to, like, they were designed to cater to this clientele. At Sandals Ochi, for example, I was there and they had 12 different weddings throughout the day, and almost every single one of them was in a different location. The resort is literally built to accommodate different locations and then be all creative and unique and just special. So I always like to say, a bride can go and just, she might just walk the resort, not even know where she wants to get married yet, but walk the resort, and she's going to find a place that, you know, speaks to her and finds inspiration there. And then that's going to be the spot for them.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I think just having, because like if you want a chapel experience, that is an option. If you want something over the water or at the beach or whatever, it really is nice. And I know when I met with them, or I met with the wedding coordinator when I was visiting, and you know, I said I have clients that it's important that they keep their faith in their ceremony, and they said, yeah, that would not be an issue to do that at those properties. And I think that for someone that does want that traditional wedding, but further away and not having to deal with the costs and the expense at home, and but they still want to have that traditional type wedding, the chapel's an excellent option for those that want something like that too.
Yeah, and just to throw it back to Sandals Montego Bay, where you were just at, I mean, they have maybe the most beautiful chapel on site, plus an over the water chapel. So I mean, you've got great options everywhere.
Yeah, and guys, I have videos of both. They're gorgeous. They're so nice. Yeah, absolutely. And they do have, you know, bridal rooms and stuff like that for, you know, preparation ahead of time. But I just think they just do a really great job of, like you said, Ian, you can make it what you want it to be. It can be as small or as big as you want, and you don't have the same headaches. But you also, we connected with a couple when we were there in Montego Bay, and they did, and I know that this is common, but they had their wedding at Montego Bay, and then they went off to Dunn's River for their honeymoon. Awesome. Because they wanted to escape. They wanted their family there for the wedding, but they wanted to be alone for their honeymoon. So, and they got to visit 2 different resorts, and it really did feel like I had a wedding and a honeymoon because it was 2 different places.
Yeah, and if I could just, I'll sound like a broken record, but going back to value, you mentioned 2 places just right there that feature something, whether it's a stay at 1, play at 2 concept, but if they're at Sandals Montego Bay, they have the opportunity to go over Sandals Royal Caribbean. When they're at Dunn's River, they have the opportunity to experience Sandals Ochi. So when you go back to that value, like there is such an incredible level of value that you're getting with the Sandals and Beaches that you just don't get everywhere else. And that is all included, whether it's, you know, the transfers to and from the resorts, the pickup, the drop off, you know, obviously with our, you know, version of all inclusive, it's the meals, it's the drinks, all of that is included. And that's just more value that you're getting with this brand.
Yeah, and we did that as well. We went over to Royal Caribbean while we were in town, and it was a very easy drive over there. Yeah. And it's great, yeah, because you just want to experience the different, and it can be restaurants or, you know, just a different pool or a different beach and see it all. So it's great that you can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I know that you guys are always on top of, you know, making sure you're evolving at all times and you're making the changes that you need to make. Can you share with us any plans for the future that they might want to look forward to? Any renovations, anything like that?
This is a big one. So one thing with our brand, we always are, you know, whether it's the innovations, Sandals 2.0 is kind of our big catchphrase right now. Everything is Sandals 2.0. How do we take it to the next level and still be, you know, the leader in innovation and all that? So let's kind of backtrack all the way to the beginning when we were talking about, you know, Hurricane Melissa and, you know, some of the things we've experienced in Jamaica with Sandals Montego Bay, Royal Caribbean, and Sandals South Coast. You know, 3 incredible resorts all in Jamaica experienced some damage from Hurricane Melissa. So we took that opportunity and we delayed the opening even further to announce just very recently, as you probably heard, an over $200 million investment in those resorts. So, I mean, really full scale reimaginings of all 3 of those is taking place right now. So, you know, later in the year when those open up, you know, even if you've been to one of those 3 resorts before, it's going to be a different experience now. So all the more reason to go back out and experience one of those 3 resorts again. But major reimagining is taking place in the Jamaica 3 is what we're calling them. But also this is really exciting kind of a new commitment or a renewed commitment to the Beaches brand. So we have Sandals and Beaches. So Beaches would be for the entire family type of experience. But the Beaches brand is going to explode over the next handful of years. So obviously just in Turks and Caicos just a couple of weeks ago, which I had the opportunity to be there for the opening, The Treasure Beach Village, 101 new suites there at Turks. If you've been to Turks, you know it's literally one of the most beautiful beaches on the entire planet. So really exciting new suites and amenities there. Our first movie theater on site there, so that was really exciting. But also Beaches Runaway Bay, that'll be kind of around the Ocho Rios area. Beaches Barbados, Beaches St. Vincent, and Beaches Exuma. So a ton of beaches inventory is right down the pipeline. We can literally see it coming. So everyone should just be really excited. Not only is it a really exciting time to be, you know, working for the brand, it's a really exciting time for you to be looking for your next vacation or family vacation. So a lot of big things coming, big news. Fortunately, everybody has you to kind of pass along those updates and get people excited as they get a little bit closer. But big things are happening, so keep your eyes open and get excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And the feed broke up just a little bit, so I want to make sure that the one part that I think broke up that people didn't hear is that beaches is for families.
Yep.
Sandals is adults only. So he was starting to talk a little bit more about the difference between beaches and sandals. So, okay, well, that's wonderful. Ian, is there anything else you really want our audience to know about your brand?
I think just, you know, just going back to what I said in the beginning, there's so many great brands out there. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you know, do this X, Y, Z. You know, you've got a lot of amazing options out there. But one thing that really kind of speaks to me with this brand is it being truly an authentic Caribbean company. You know, for those of you who do not know, Sandals started in Jamaica. Our founders, you know, is a sixth generation Jamaican. So it really is, you know, when our catchphrase in our campaign you see on TV, Made of Caribbean, it's really more than just a motto or a saying. Like it really is the lifeblood of the company, and that's, you know, the way we operate. The experiences that we provide is a truly authentic Caribbean experience to your clients, and you just literally don't get that everywhere. So I think, you know, when it does come down to making a decision on where you want to go, where you want to visit, you know, if having those authentic Caribbean experiences is something that, you know, is that deal breaker item for you, then it's a no brainer to talk to you about booking a Sandals and Beaches.
Great. And I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I apologize before before I ask this, but you know, this is something that comes up a lot with Jamaica, and I can attest because I've been to Jamaica many times, and I love Jamaica, and the people, I adore them. But safety comes up with Jamaica. People are nervous about going to Jamaica, and of course, we can never make guarantees about anything. But would you mind speaking to that just a little bit?
Yes, that's an easy one. I'll tell you just a super quick story. The last time I was doing one of these and someone said, you know, I apologize, I'm going to put you on the spot. It was like, oh, we're going to do a two truths and a lie segment. And if you've never done that off the top of your head before, and you got to sit there and think about it, everyone was like, okay, that's a lie. So it was a huge disaster. So this was much better set up. I appreciate it.
Okay, great.
You know, I could give you the cliches on what you've heard a million times on, you know, Jamaica is like nowhere else, you know, just like everywhere else. If you know, leave the resort, you know, be cautious, do this, do that, you know, don't do something in Jamaica that you wouldn't do at home. Like all of that, we all know that. But it's important to know that, you know, where we have these resorts, and especially when you leave the resorts to do like an excursion, these are all things that have been vetted. They've been experienced. We don't work with every single vendor partner out there. You know, they have to go through a strenuous, you know, onboarding to even be considered to be a partner of Island Routes, for example. And, you know, just to and from the resorts, these are things that, you know, we've done every day of life to make sure that it is smooth, it is safe for clients. So I think I just always go back to exactly like you said, you know, there's never any guarantees in life anywhere, but, you know, safety is always such a priority, whether it's in Jamaica or any of our Caribbean locations. Safety is always going to be that number one priority for our guests, and that's never going to change. So the things you see around the resort, you know, the way, you know, we conduct ourselves with our tours and excursions, you're going to notice the level of safety and the precautions it's taken. So that's just a no-brainer across the board.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So guys, like I said, I was going to share my blog post. So the left-hand corner, you can scan that QR code and it'll take you directly to the post so that you can read more about our personal experience with the resort. I also would like to encourage you all to please be sure to follow or subscribe to the show just know that you're not getting spammed when you subscribe. You're not getting enlisted into anything. You're not paying for anything. You're just following it. That way, when the next show is coming out, you will be alerted to that and you can watch it, or you can watch the recording if you miss it. But Ian, thank you again. This was really great. We are so thrilled that you agreed to take the time out to do this with us, and I know our clients appreciate it as well, our followers, and we just appreciate it so much.
Yes, thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll reiterate, everyone like, subscribe, follow everything Melissa's telling you. One of the reasons, she keeps thanking, me and Sandals for being part of this, but it goes both ways. So, huge thank you for your support and, everything that you do for the brand and everything that you do for your clients, because obviously we know, getting as much information out there as possible, getting people as educated as possible about our resorts and what we offer is huge. So we greatly appreciate that and appreciate you and love what you're doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the partnership. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.